culture aligns with your sense of how you want to spend your day. And one of the most interesting sort of life experiences I had with this, and then I'll shut up, is that when I first graduated from undergrad, all right, my degree, some of you may not know this. Anybody know what my undergrad degree was in? Because I know my education is fascinating to all of you. You've read about it. What was my undergrad degree?
Was it art?
It was philosophy. Worse. Art is at least a skill, right? So philosophy is just a lot of reading. So philosophy, which is in lots of job descriptions, right? Seeking BA with honors in philosophy, right? Useless. I learned a lot, obviously. It was a very good education. But I got a job. I graduated into a very good company. I was very lucky. I graduated in the late 80s, and we had recruiters coming and hiring us out of our liberal arts programs. They couldn't fill their new talent fast enough. I mean, very lucky, and I know that. If it's any consolation, when I graduated from grad school, the economy had tanked. So I have had early 90s recession. I have had some experience with what you're going through. But the first job I had was with a company that did benefits, retirement benefits plan consulting. So they did what is now, they didn't exist yet, but what is now 401k plans. And we had accountants that did the accounting, and we had computer programmers that wrote the software. And then we had account executives, which was not altogether dissimilar from sales. We didn't have to close. We got them after they had closed, but then we managed them and kept them going and enhanced the services and that sort of thing. And the first company I worked for, I was miserable. I mean, I would lay awake at night on Sundays and dread the arrival of Monday morning and just thought, I can't believe this is my life. And I didn't see anybody there whose life in any way was something I aspired to have. I didn't like them as people. I didn't like the way they lived their lifestyle. Not that anybody lacked character, but just when you look around and think, like, where am I, right? This is so, but you know, you don't quit a job. It was a good job. And then I was recruited away by a competitor who did exactly the same work. I thought it was the work. I thought I picked the wrong job. And took this other job with this competitor and was so happy doing exactly the same job, but it was the people and the environment and the leadership style and how they created incentives and what was rewarded just aligned better. And I was so much more successful at the second job because I wasn't burning energy trying to pretend to be happy. But I wouldn't have gotten the second job if I hadn't stuck it out for long enough at the first one. So sometimes what you're getting out of it is experience and credibility and legitimacy and a good life lesson about what doesn't work for you. And then you take it to the next level. You just make these decisions along the way, understand why you're making them. If you can articulate the reasons, if you maintain your reputation, it's all good. So, all right, I'll stop there. I talked for longer than I should have. I normally don't do that. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
I know it's kind of a typical question, but you've kind of had an interesting journey to where you've arrived. Yeah. Well, what's something you could say that you wish you would have known coming out and starting that journey? Because a lot of us are graduating, and right off the bat, you know, I know we're gonna do a lot of failure to learn as well.
Something I wish I would have known. Gosh. I think one of my bigger surprises in the early days of my career was I wish I would have known that that superficial things matter as much as you think they do. So, and actually, I gave a talk last month to our diversity, the Chancellor's Diversity Initiative, which is more for staff. And I told a story then, and we're recording, so I'm hesitating whether I'm going to tell the story, but I'll tell the story anyway.
I can cut it out.
Well, that was recorded too, so I guess I don't know why. Yeah, all right, so this was a little later, but not so much later. So I was saying I had my daughter who's coming to Mizzou in the fall. And by then I was a lawyer. Actually, I'd gone back to grad school and was practicing law, and I was in my first law job. And so I had this baby, and you know, I come back to work. And I came back to work pretty fast because I wanted to make sure I was still viewed as committed, and that's changed a little. The expectations of young mothers, new mothers, that's culturally changed a lot from generation to generation. But that's the diversity, women in business speech, and I'll tell that one some other time. But anyway, so I came back to work pretty fast, and I had my annual review, and my boss scolded me for allowing myself to look like a tired new mom. So that shocks you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it went into my HR file, right? And it was still inappropriate. And I'm not saying what he said was appropriate, it was a little inappropriate. But what he was saying was, if you want to show you're still committed to work, and at that job you didn't have to. Not every job is so unreasonable, but that one was. Then you can't look like you don't want to be here. You can't look tired. You can't look like you wish you were at home with the baby, even if you are. Now, that's very unfair. But that's true. And life's not always fair. So I kind of wish that I hadn't needed that. That was embarrassing, as you might imagine. But I'll tell you the story so it won't happen to you. But I learned a lot, and I'm lucky it was earlier, right? So some of that superficial stuff, it matters. And showing up in a suit and looking scrubbed up, it matters. It does. So I kind of wish I'd known that. Because what you want is for the outward, external things to be the non-issue, so that what people actually notice is the quality of your work and the quality of your commitment to what you're doing, and not whether you're neat and tidy.
You were talking about getting the most out of the business school while we're here and taking advantage of all these incredible opportunities. What would you consider the hidden gem of the business school that you wish you could take all of us and shake us and say, go to this or participate in this?
I really think it's the PDP workshops. And I know that it's hard to motivate yourself to do more of them than the minimal amount required. And I know. But a lot of it, you won't realize the value of until you're in the situation and you realize you have something in your toolbox as a result that you otherwise wouldn't have had. And so I would say a lot of what we do really well here, and I say this having no right to take any personal credit for how we do it. This is all people who are on the team who do this, is what we do with your out of the classroom time and what we offer to you with your out of the classroom time. So when you're a university student, you actually spend a very small percentage of these 4 years, 4.5 years, 3.5 years, however long it's taking you in the classroom, right? And so much of what you learn is from each other and from this weird space that you're in for these years, which is nothing like what you were in before, and it's nothing like what you'll be in after. And so the workshops and the speakers are a unique thing, you know, later in life. Like when you could tell your parents, you know, we had the CFO of Caterpillar in, are they like, oh my God, I would love to have heard him talk. Maybe some of them are, maybe some of them aren't, but they would because they don't get to. He's not available to them, but he is available to you. And what you'd probably rather be doing is taking a nap or whatever, you know, hanging out with your friends. Maybe, you know, sometimes, I mean, I understand, I really do, more than you might realize. But what he said was really useful, and having shaken his hand and having his business card in your pocket is priceless, and you don't know when you might need that later. So I would say try to attend in an engaged way as many of these things as possible. You know, it's not just Chase Daniel, although he was a great speaker. How many of you went and saw him? Really? Just one? Okay, never mind, I shouldn't. Like that was an implicit scold, and I take it back. So, I saw a question, yeah.
What are your thoughts on, just from past success of other students and alumni, going to graduate school either right out of graduating or waiting a couple years after that business experience?
I think it's a 6 of 1, right? Now, you're a very different sort of an MBA if you go straight through. So what the MBA seems to do, and this is changing, and it's changed a lot since I was a student, and it's changed a lot over the arc that I've been involved in higher education and business school higher education. So when I first became a member of the faculty, you couldn't get into an MBA program with less than 5 years of experience. And a person with an MBA was a person who had already been tracked for leadership, managerial leadership positions, period. That's what that degree meant. Well, cycles change, market trends change, demand for products changes, and now you can get an MBA straight through. And students who come straight through with an MBA, it's really important that you do as many internships as possible and get as much applied experience as you can. But what they'll get is sort of a mid-level, entry-level job, right? So it's going to be a higher job in all likelihood than you would get coming straight out. But what it means is later when there's a fork in the road, you've already got your credential. In some cases that will matter, in some cases it won't. It depends on the kind of company you work for. Certain industries don't care, and certain industries do. And it just varies. Like for example, banking, not so big on MBA or non-MBA, but investments, big, right? So it just depends on where your goals are. Waiting a couple of years and doing it is getting easier. You know, we have our program here now, as you know, our Exec MBA program, which is, and I say this to you knowing you can't access it yet, it's a great program. And it's the sort of thing you keep in your back pocket, but we're not the only one with a great program. There are several really great programs depending on where you're living and how much free time you have. But it is a little harder to go back to school later, without a doubt, but I did it, and lots and lots and lots of people do it. And it's just a question of whether you see the opportunities coming to you as you get closer to graduation and you think they have something to offer. But I think going straight to grad school is a little like that first job. It's a good thing to give a lot of thought to, and I'm not saying don't think about it, but I'm saying don't overthink it. These are all good options, and there's never anything bad about choosing a good option. So what seems to feel right is probably okay. Now, your parents might not like me saying continue in school rather than get a job, but have them call me. I'll explain why I said it. Or email me might be better. Yeah.
What was the hardest thing about switching from your job in the law field to teaching stuff like, or just switching fields completely?
Yeah, and it's actually, that was my third switch. So I had the job in benefits, and then I went to law school and became a lawyer, and then I made this academic switch. And I think the hardest thing about any major change is that you go from being comfortable to being uncomfortable. I mean, that's just hard. It's hard to move from Tallahassee, Florida to Columbia, Missouri. It's hard to move from practicing law to academic life. It's major changes is hard. But there's a couple of things to keep in mind, right? And of course, I'm going to tell you it's a good thing to do. and it is. But there's a couple of things that you might not realize. So major change, like moving or getting married or making major job changes, is actually really good for your brain. And there's a lot of very interesting data on this, how when you have to do everything fresh periodically in your life, it keeps your neurons firing. So you know how you get highway hypnosis if you drive the same way over and over? When you make major life changes, you keep yourself from having like perpetual highway hypnosis in your life. And so I'm not saying disrupt your entire life just so that you keep a young brain, but don't be afraid of it, because there are some implicit advantages. But you know, it's hard in life to go from, for me, for example, living close to your parents, having all your friends from high school close by, even many years later, pulling your kids out of their school. I mean, how many of you made a major move in your life? It's not easy, it's hard. But every major move I've made has been positive. And I don't know if it would have been better to stay, but I absolutely know that there were good things to come out of everything I've done. So, but it's hard to go from comfortable to uncomfortable. Surprise! I'm sure that shocks you. So, but I'm a fan of it periodically, when the right opportunity comes along.
All right, guys. Well, let's give Dean Gabel a round of applause.